Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on Redefining Motherhood. Today, we get to sit down with Amanda. Let me tell you a bit about Amanda. Amanda is an intuitive coach who helps overwhelmed empaths celebrate what it makes them unique so they can step into their own power and purpose. She is truly passionate about helping women see their weaknesses as strengths so they can heal themselves and raise a generation who don't have to look outside themselves for validation. Let's jump right in. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be so good. I feel like we have so much in common in terms of our mission and as to why we're here. So I would love for you to tell our listeners, what it is that you're passionate about and why this podcast today? Why?
So I've as I've unpacked my journey, so I have two daughters, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old,
Cool.
or 5-year-old now, oh my goodness. And time goes by so quick.
It does.
And having them really was I want to call it like a turning point in my life, of me starting to realize that I wasn't actually living my own full life. I was kind of living this half a life, watered down version of who I was. And there's something about, especially for me with having two girls, about going, I don't want that for them. And so that kind of began my journey into entrepreneurship, from a job in corporate that I really didn't love. And in that, really starting to find out who I am.
Right.
And it was a really difficult but amazing journey to go on. And so one thing that's always been a mission of mine is to have people not feel alone.
Right.
To talk about the things that maybe not everybody's talking about, and to be very real about this journey, whether that's as a mom, whether that's as a business owner, whatever it is, right? Because I think there's so many of us who feel that way.
Right.
That feel like we're alone, that we're in this by ourselves. And that is just not what we need right now.
Nope.
We're at a time where support, community, sharing, and feeling like you are connected with other people is just so important. And I do that for moms, for empaths, sensitive people, all of that, because I think there is this overwhelming feeling of being alone, and you're not. So that is kind of the thing that drives me as my why.
I love that. You can tell you've done your deep dive into like, why are you here?
Yeah.
So much more than the podcast, but why are you here on this planet at this time, right?
Yeah. And so, and for the podcast, it aligns so much to this,
It does.
right? Like we were just having this conversation, where I pretty much have just repeated what you've just said to me, because I was like, that literally is our mission. So as we've talked about, it's so cool to meet up with people with the same mission, so that we can kind of, share our magic with the world.
Yes, absolutely. Share our magic. So I have so many things to say, and I will go there, but I have to say, so I have been in love with unicorns since I was a little girl. And your Facebook group is called, tell us what it's called again.
It's called the Empath Unicorn at Discover Your Magic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I love that. So before I had my daughter, probably 2 years before I had my daughter, I did a big rebrand, and I made sure that unicorns were part of my branding and part of the magic and just the wonder. And then I bought a book that's all about, that's like the wonder of unicorns. And it was so on point. But I remember shutting that down as a young girl because people would make fun of me for loving unicorns. And I didn't like that. And then, you grow into yourself, you gain your confidence, and you're like, wait, I don't care what people think about unicorns. It literally became, in the early stages of my business, everybody would be like, Nicole, unicorn, Nicole, unicorn. They were, so when I connected with you, I was like, oh, a fellow unicorn. I love it.
It's perfect. And it's like that gathering, right? It's like this belief that you are magical and you are special, right? So, because I think we're kind of told that we're not supposed to look at that side of ourselves. So it's really cool to start to lean into that side of ourselves and be like, oh, this actually is kind of like my superpower, my magic. So that's awesome.
I love it. I love it. So I wanted to go back. So you said working with empaths and people who are sensitive. And I think a lot of us are, I was going to say waking up, but maybe just hearing more and more about what an empath is. And so I would love to hear what it means for you, because I think there's a definite general understanding of what an empath is, but as we've grown, I think it really becomes our own understanding with it. So what has it been for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes it gets confused with empathy.
Yes.
So like most people have empathy.
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah.
People who don't usually have some other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So empathy is to understand how somebody feels in a situation. So you can kind of go, yes, I could understand how you can feel. So I have empathy to you and your situation.
Right.
Being an empath is actually being able to feel that. So you're actually feeling those actual emotions, especially if you are an emotional empath. There's different types of empaths.
Okay.
So you can be like, there's ones for plants, animals, like there's all of that kind of stuff. So I've been kind of diving into this because for me, it was kind of the thing that linked everything together for me. So I kind of went, oh my gosh, this is what I am. Like, and it explains so much. So it's being sensitive to sounds, and to smells sometimes, needing to be by yourself to recharge. There's things like when you are with people, taking on their energy. So feeling what they feel, feeling drawn to being out into nature, lots of different things that kind of come together. People experience them differently. And it's kind of, there's some things from being introverted sometimes, and there's also some things from being, oh my goodness, what is it? Introverted and sensitive kind of come together into what empaths are. So for me personally, what that has explained is that the deep need that I feel to be alone, as well as I'm very sensitive to sounds, definitely take on people's energy. That's a big one. And really learning about this because when I was young, that was something that I was always told, well, you're too sensitive. Like, you're way too emotional. I cried all the time as a kid, all the time.
Yeah.
And I learned really quickly that I needed to not be that way. I need to like toughen up, get a thicker skin. Like, that's how you survive in this world.
Right.
And there's a lot of like kind of shame and judgment surrounding when I was very emotional.
Right.
So I was like, okie doke, putting that on lockdown, and just dove right into masculine energy.
Yep.
And lived there for a really long time. And in turn ended up really fighting who I was, which is exhausting. It's exhausting to fight who you actually are.
It is.
So really coming into understanding this now is me leaning into those things and realizing that being sensitive is super awesome.
It is. Yeah.
When you understand it and you understand how you can utilize that in your life. And so it was another one of those moments where I'm like, I have to tell everybody about this because I don't want people feeling like there's something wrong with them or that they're alone. Because it's really hard to create lasting relationships or friendships when you don't actually know who you are and you're just taking on the energy of other people. You're kind of doing what you feel you need to do to fit in. And that is so isolating and lonely. Yeah. And I can just remember those feelings. It's palpable, that aloneness. And I know even like we're talking for moms too, like you feel that, like feel alone. And so it's really important to know that you're not alone and the things you're experiencing are normal. Yeah. And that you just see the world differently. And that's amazing. And we need more of that.
Yeah. And you feel the world differently too, right?
Yes,
like you can feel so many things. We have been doing so much work on, I'm in a mastermind with some incredible women, and we've been doing a lot of this conversations around masculine and feminine energy, as well as like, what does it really mean to be in tune with ourselves and decondition from all of the things that we bought into or those programs that I do think that we have to experience. I do believe we need the polarity in life. You know, we have to have the darkness in order to understand our light. And stepping into those pieces. And it would just, I mean, you and I have the same kind of vibe around raising a generation that just knows that on the inside, like knows who they are and can also just identify with like what doesn't feel good and what doesn't, or what does, and be able to utilize that. I think that is like the whole intention around evolving. It's like we're getting younger and younger here around
Right.
discovering our gifts and our talents and our sensitivities, or even like I'm highly auditory. So the word that I would use is like in tune, like being very in tune with what are my needs and what are my wants, what makes me feel good and what doesn't. And knowing that stuff and then becoming a mother and also knowing that stuff, I think is actually critical. I don't think it's optional anymore.
Yeah.
I think it is absolutely necessary for us to know what we want and know what we need, and then have the communication skills to do that, so that when we do want to be alone, instead of lonely, we know like we get to be alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you were to say, you know, what does redefining motherhood, I have so many places to go, PS, but I also just wanted to know,
Yeah, for sure.
how do you find this transition or this journey for you? How has it been? What is your journey around redefining motherhood? What would you say that has been for you?
So when I had my oldest daughter, I hadn't gone on this journey yet. So I fully bought into the messaging that said that like you need to give up your entire self to become a mom. You also need to look exactly the way you did before.
Right.
And your entire life is going to change. And it's interesting because some of that stuff is true, but I fought a lot of it because I was just like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be the person who loses themselves in motherhood.
Right.
But the result of that was I had a very stressful pregnancy too, I might add. We had moments where we weren't sure if we're going to meet my daughter. So it was a very long, drawn out, stressful time. So immediately when I had her, I had already protected myself to be like, just in case I don't meet you, I don't want to get attached.
Yeah.
And she was in the NICU for 14 days. So we didn't really get to see her in the first day. So the point of all of this is that what ended up kind of happening was I was a very hands-off mom. And I knew deep down that I loved her and that she was mine.
Yes.
But I didn't have that, what they kind of tell you is this explosion of love. It did not happen. And I thank my one friend a million times over who was honest with me and told me that she didn't immediately connect with her child, because I would have thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah. So instantly that connection was built and you're like, okay,
yes,
I'm not alone in this.
I now almost even think that it was something like a guide that actually spoke through her for me, because I needed to hear that in that moment.
Ooh, I just got goosebumps. So
right,
let's validate that. Yeah, let's validate that.
Yeah. So my intro into motherhood was very hectic. It was an emergency C-section. There was just it was just different.
Yeah.
So healthy baby girl though. So
that's
what I ended up doing was really just being like, I don't know who I am. I didn't know who I was before I had a baby.
Yeah.
And so this sent me for even more of a loop of just being like, who am I? And sending my energy forward, sending my energy backwards, and not being present. Like I just wasn't present. I spent a lot of time being like clinging to control, which was I could control the things I used to do. So I jumped back into fitness because that's what I used to do. I was very like, it's okay. I don't need to do these things. I got very touched out by my child, which I now know is actually an empath thing.
Right.
And I didn't feel guilty with time alone. So, and I didn't want to wear my child because of the touched out part.
Right.
So I would go to mom groups and be like, I don't fit in here at all.
Right.
Because I would always feel like I was the odd person out, with everybody being like, oh, my child, I carry them. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's amazing.
No.
But what I ended up really learning is that everyone has a different way of doing things. And we are not kind of told that. We're not told that we have the power within ourselves to make these decisions. We're told that we don't. and that here's all these answers out
Mm-hmm.
here and go and speak to all these professionals. And it's so stressful.
It is.
So I was just constantly looking outside of myself for answers and not finding them because I didn't fit into that box. And that was really, it was a stressful time looking back. At the time, I feel like I was just in survival mode. So I was just like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And from the outside, I appeared very calm and fine.
Right.
Because that's how I deal with things like that. And what I've learned and with trauma is just, I'm okay. It's fine.
Yep.
And looking back though now, I'm just like, no, it was really hard. So when I had my second daughter, I knew I wanted to do things like rest and connect and all of those things. And I did that. And that part was lovely. The one thing I did still learn, because I didn't really quite know about the sensitivity and the empath, was that I still didn't want to breastfeed. I didn't want to have her attached to me all the time, which again comes along with its own level of guilt, right? Where I'm like, why don't I want to do the things I quote unquote should want to do?
Well, there we go. There's that terrible, nasty word.
Yeah. So that's kind of those stories of me kind of realizing that I just had my own way of doing things, and that didn't make me a bad mom. It just made me the best mom that I could be
for them. Because they chose you. They chose you.
Because if I would have held my daughter all day, I would have been upset and anxious, and like, she doesn't need that. Whereas if I put her down, I was okay and happy and able to give her what she needed. I now know there's some level of energy protection that needed to happen there, and stuff like that. But again, that's stuff that I know now that I like to share with other people, especially moms and parents who are sensitive, who this may really like rock their world when they have a child. But it can be this beautiful, beautiful experience in the midst of, the reality of having a newborn baby and the lack of sleep and the healing and that part's just the journey in itself. But so the redefining for me was none of this anymore. Like, we need to start sharing this idea that what if you actually know what you need? What if what feels right for you is actually the right thing for you to do for you and your family? And not even just in parenting, just in everything.
In just being a human and being in touch with how we feel. And I think, when you had said earlier, you were growing up and you felt very sensitive, and you were always being told you were too emotional, and shutting that part of you down. And I always think that that's our compass. Like, that is how we know what's okay and what's not okay. And if we have learned from parents who have been doing the best that they could with what they had, they didn't know. They were just doing what they thought was right at the time. And 20 years from now, that will be different again. However, it is this really powerful piece that I come into. And it's like, it's not about all of those external things that you're choosing to do versus what I chose to do. It's the energy that is connected to the choice that you made, which was, I need to feel okay. My energy needs to be protected. I want to present and let love flow from me. And the only way I know to do that is to do things differently than what everyone else is telling me to do. And that's where maternal mental health, I think, is so key. I remember being in the hospital and the nurse being like, you've got to do this and you've got to breastfeed and you. And she had phenomenal intentions, right? She was definitely an angel that I needed for sure. And I said, listen, like, my baby needs me to be on. And in order for me to be on, I'm asleep right now, and he's going to give her the bottle because I can't. We were in the hospital on Tuesday, and we came back, and we ended up being there for like 7 or 8 days. I hadn't slept since maybe since I was 8 months pregnant, because you just don't sleep the last month. Right? And I just wonder about that connection. If we were to create a community, which I think we're on a mission to do, where we are really in tune with our feelings, as empaths, as being sensitive, or just as also being super in tune with what it is that we need, right? Because I think there are a lot of people out there who can't connect with, because you said an empath is that they can feel the emotion. I think I have some stuff on that one there too. But what if we could just get tuned in with what we feel? Because we've
Yep.
spent an entire lifetime shutting those things down. It's almost like we've got to decondition and detox, right?
We do, especially for those who do take on the energy of others. You need to be releasing that, especially if you're really sensitive to that. It becomes very difficult to discern what's yours and what's somebody else's.
Totally.
I have a grounding meditation that I do where, if you can, you're barefoot outside in the dirt, and you literally like exhale, and with every exhale, imagine like all the negative energy, all the energy that's not yours, sinking back down into the earth. And on every inhale, you imagine that bright white light coming up from the earth to fill in all those spaces and bring you calm. Also helpful just if you need 5 seconds to not.
Yeah, totally.
to just be
to breathe.
Just take 5 seconds. And you can do this in your house. Like, it's not like you have to be outside, but like it is helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's part of like that. How do I even trust what I'm feeling if I'm not completely sure that it's mine? And I find trust comes up a lot where we don't trust ourselves because for a long time we've been told not to.
Well, yeah, we've disconnected from that compass that has been telling us, and maybe we've trusted it and then it steered us wrong. And we're like, I will never trust that again. And I'm going to put that in a box and I will never come back to it. And I think with motherhood, this identity of like, who am I now? It's this calling. It is this calling us forward. And you said clinging on to control, like absolutely this illusion that I can control so many things, but I actually can't. And then coming back into self and going, okay, so, but I don't like it in here either. So, I think it is so overwhelming. And then sleep deprivation is a huge role that I don't think anyone talks about.
Seriously. And you know what? Sleep's actually one of the things that empaths need as well. It's interesting when I was going through the things like loud noises and you need to have sleep and you need to have alone time. And I was like, how do you get a newborn baby?
Yeah, you can't.
So you have to, so it's one of those things of being aware of it can be helpful. Like even just that can be helpful, right? Totally. Like it's not you. It's just what's going on, right?
It's this phase of life. And I think you're right with the awareness. I tell my clients all the time that it's that awareness often can like solve 70 to 80% of our problems.
Agreed. Yeah.
That awareness and then the grace and compassion that follows with it. It's like, I'll tell you right now, last week's moon energy, I was out. There was no creative zone. I think I ate carbs for every meal. I don't think I had a vegetable all week. And I was in a dark haze. And I literally came back, I think it was Monday afternoon. And I was like, hi. And I was like, how many other people feel this way, but don't have the language or the awareness to talk about it? Because with that awareness, I was like, oh, okay. Got to put that in my phone for next time. Like I've got to set a reminder because there's this like connection with this isn't me. Or it is me, but it's not something I'm doing wrong.
Right.
Right.
It's that idea. Yeah. I say this a lot to myself as well. It's just this, what if what you feel and what you're drawn towards is actually the right thing to do?
Absolutely.
Right. Like what if this idea of I just need to go lay down and have a nap isn't you being lazy.
No.
It's you giving yourself exactly what you need to show up as your best self. Right.
Yes.
And it's hard because you have to try to get rid of the conditioning that you've been given. And even the stuff that we're still guided to do now. And that idea of like doing it all and all of these things. And I was like, no, we're not doing it all. We're looking after a baby. Like, oh my gosh, like you need some time to do that.
Yes.
But like really leaning into that. And even if you want to like talk mother's intuition, like that kind of idea, like that gut feeling, like following that and actually going, no, like this is what's right for us. And that's, that can be really, really empowering and really start to shift like how you see yourself and instead of coming from this place of I'm weak potentially and coming instead of being like, no, I am like this powerful being who actually knows what I need. And doing that shift can change a lot and can really change how you show up in your life too. Again, like in so many different areas. And that's something I've been called to talk about for a long time. I got my start doing personal training, and that was it for moms. And that was a big message was, I'm like, you're not weak. You're not weak because your body
needs to rest.
Because your body has, your body needs to rest. Your body has maybe some things going on right now. Like, no way. You're incredibly strong, powerful, magical. And your body is just going, give me 5 seconds, please. Like, I just need to chill. Right. And it's shifting where we're coming from in that frame of mind, in how we speak about ourselves and how we speak about moms in general, and shifting it out of this idea that like, we're not enough. Because it's BS.
It is. It's
totally more
BS.
than enough.
I wonder too, right? Like, it's this idea that we are more than enough. We are so much more than that. And this deconditioning and unlearning all of these things of what motherhood should be. Yeah. It's like this message that we are in a completely different generation. We are actually in a completely different time in our world. Our mothers and fathers never experienced this. Yeah. And there's just this level of grace. It's almost like we were kind of going ahead straight, and then a shift came, and it was like, we need to shift, and, with everything that's going on with COVID too, it's like this, also this opportunity to be like, everyone is going to do this differently. Everyone is going to do it differently. And I think now more than ever, we got to be in tune with ourselves, because that has helped me. I definitely have been on the emotional waves of like absolute terror and fear, and flown back into myself. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever used this term, but this is what I've been using a lot lately. It's been really helping me with myself. I only ever share things that I have done for me at first. So for me, I'm skipping back to this empath around feeling the emotion of feeling. There's this difference of understanding, but then there's the feeling. And I don't know if many people can understand that if they're just hearing it for the first time. And what has been helpful for me is, it's like have you heard the term meat suit? Like this is our soul, and then this is, it's really not the prettiest word, but it is so in your face that I find that actually when I am in fear, anxious, or nervous, it's actually because I've left my body. I haven't stayed in my body. I'm not present with myself, and I am trying to feel what everyone else is feeling about the circumstance. I've literally left my body to go feel what someone else is feeling like. And I was like, where don't I do that? I don't do that when I'm coaching. I don't do it when I'm podcasting. I don't do it when I'm driving, right? Right. So when am I doing it? And it has been a lot of levels or layers for me to understand. But I have recently been going, get back in your body, like literally tapping myself and get back in my body to figure out, is it mine or is it theirs? Yeah. That has been a question that has saved me for so many years. Is it mine or is it theirs? Yeah.
It's so helpful. And you're right, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world and us being asked to take like this big pause. I know for me as well, like it's been like this huge roller coaster of, again, that start out of trying to find control in any way that I could. Yes. Yep. And then really just letting go. And in the letting go, that's where starting to tap into that. Well, what do I actually want and need? Like who am I in this when I don't have anybody telling me what my day looks like? Because it's all new. Nobody knows, right?
Nobody knows. And what are those external forces that either make me feel more aligned and safe and grounded? And what are the forces that are taking me out of that situation? And I think, again, now more than ever, we really need to have those parameters in place, because I'll tell you, the second I put on the news or I read an article, I'm out of my body. I'm out. Yeah. And it's like, if we definitely have to be informed, and we have to be really smart and respectful about where we're at. And then there's also this point where we have to say, that's it. Like, I'm done. And now I need to go on with my day and continue to really feel safe and focus on the things that make me feel good. Yeah. Because I think there's so much small t trauma going on, and we don't have the language and we don't have the tools for it. I will say not we, most people don't have the tools.
Yeah.
And I think these are what we need. We need to feel, what makes me feel good and what doesn't. And then what doesn't, like, get it away.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I feel like that's been a big thing, is that it's really put under a magnifying glass what isn't working in your life.
Right.
And maybe what you don't want to go back to.
Yeah.
As things start to open back up. And it's just a really interesting look, which I'm sure can feel not great. But it can be really helpful, especially when we do talk about, like, well, what feels good on the opposite side of that? Like, what has really been working? What has been kind of reshaping how I see myself and my life and all of those things. And yeah, like for me, I mean, it's been a lot of this self-discovery of like the empath and all of that kind of things, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is like the stuff that's like putting everything together, and realizing how much of my kids' lives I was missing until I was home with them. Like my 2-year-old, I was just like, I've been missing it. Like, I haven't been watching you grow up. I've been running around pickups and drop-offs and events on the weekends. And I missed it. And so I got 6 months of time, and I'm not going to pretend like those were like sunshine and rainbows.
I was going to say, like, please tell us, like,
no, they weren't. They were trying, to say the least, as somebody who needs to be alone to recharge.
Yes.
However, but there were some like really beautiful things in there where I'm kind of like, if at the very least, I now cherish the time more that I do have with my kids. And yeah, it makes a big difference for me now than before, where I was kind of just going through the motions, going and doing all the things. And now I'm kind of like, well, do we like, does my 2-year-old really need to do all of those things? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe it's not. But yeah, so that is like one of the gifts that I've been given through all of this. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that as well as the challenges of being home with your family all the time. Yeah.
What would you say is the one thing that you were, so 6 months now, we're post, what's the one thing that you shifted during COVID and are choosing consciously to maintain, life with COVID, we'll say?
So it's probably like twofold for me. So like there's the time with my kids and really being present for the time with my kids, not sitting on my phone like I normally do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can you give us an example? Like, what does being present mean? Like,
so for me, it's putting away my phone and actually playing.
Okay.
I have found like playing for me, I was like, I don't want to play. Like, I just don't, I'm too tired, whatever. I have something I'm doing. And this has had me go, you know what? It's actually really fun to play. It actually puts you into a creative mode. It's actually really good for everybody. So yes, that's what I would say is like being present with my kids is very much doing that. Like actually interacting, spending quality time, doing the things like playing and dancing in the rain. Right? That for me
love that.
pains me in like my logical brain, because I'm like, oh, we're gonna get wet and there's gonna be things. But then doing it, I'm just like, these are the memories. These are like the things that we're all gonna remember.
Totally.
And then on a personal side, it's really finding my voice again, which has been amazing.
Goosebumps.
After having my daughters, I started to speak out, but in a very like neutral place. And as I've started to really peel back those layers and just be like, oh, you know what? Like I have opinions, I have thoughts, I have things that need to be shared with the world. And really stepping up and saying that and not censoring myself. Like I said, not living like that half a watered down life and not taking up space, right? It's not helping anybody. And of course, the more I do that, the more people lean in, because I'm being me finally for probably the first time in a very long time. So that's my big takeaway from COVID, which I just love. Like I fall into the category of people who, don't get me wrong, hasn't been great. However, I wouldn't change it for all of the things that I have experienced through it. And I do believe on a deeper level, it's meant to happen. And please take that as you will.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think something had to happen here. And it's really this, like you said, this awakening and the shifting of energy that's happening. And it's
Mm-hmm.
people coming back to who they are and
Mm-hmm.
what they're here to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of known for a while that that's my sole purpose, is to help people get back to who they are, so that they can heal themselves, to heal the world, basically. So
You and me both. Like that's, yeah,
yeah,
I can say the same thing. And
yeah.
I think that the severity of COVID, we're not underestimating. I think it's just a
Mhm.
natural human need to look at something and go, okay, what did I learn from this? And I
Yeah.
think, I guess I could say it from like a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Mhm.
What did we
Yeah.
learn from this, and how can I continue to move forward?
Mhm.
And I think as humans, it is a basic need for us to have certainty.
Yeah.
And uncertainty, and this
Right.
level of uncertainty has been a lot,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think as a basic human need, it is that level of, okay, there was something that I needed from this. And every single person's story has been very different and unique. But
Mhm.
within that, I have heard from a lot of moms on the show and behind the scenes, I'll say,
Mhm.
of just how, of these silver lining moments, that has
Yeah.
been that I think is the hope. And I think hope is what we all need more of right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to get us through this for sure.
Yeah. Like we're seeing a glimpse of the way it could be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah, like you said, the awakening of the empaths and the sensitive people to start
Yep.
showing the way as well.
Yes,
Because I think some
yes.
of that needs to be shown. Yeah. So
Totally.
it's very exciting, actually,
It's
in its
time
own
to
way. Yeah,
listen
it is.
and be in tune with ourselves first. Like, what is our
Yeah.
heart saying? And finding the modalities or the tools or
Mhm.
the things that feel the best for us. And that's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful to have had you here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you
Thanks for having me.
for sharing your story, because that's so important. And I think we both believe that if one mom hears this today and knows that she's not alone, then we
Mhm.
absolutely fulfilled our purpose.
Absolutely.
So thank you. And
Thank you.
I'm just curious. So if you were to go back and tell yourself either pre-COVID, like just as COVID was happening at the beginning, what would you want her to know? Knowing what you know now, what would you want your pre-COVID mama to know?
Probably that everything's going to be okay, first and foremost, and that there's some really, really great gifts hidden in here if you look for
Ooh,
them.
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. I'm going to put all the links below for people to find you, but could you tell us again where you are on Instagram and what that Facebook group is called?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Embrace and Glow.
Cool.
And my Facebook group is called The Empath Unicorn. Discover the Magic of Being You, is the group, which is it's a fun group. We're cool.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And then you can also, my website is embraceandglow.com.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Amanda. It was so great to have you here, and I hope we can have you back soon.
All right. I hope to be back. Thank you so much.
Thanks.